Good afternoon, guys. My name is Luke. Welcome to Ruth Farms. Today is Monday, September the 2nd. Y'all, this year is getting gone on us. It is crazy. Feels just like yesterday we were planting our corn, spreading our corn, and here we are turning around. It's time to start shelling corn. I'm going to guess within a week or two. We've been checking some of our corn, and we're around that anywhere from about 16 to 22%, anywhere we've sampled on our first planted corn. Of course, our later planted corn, it was about a month later. It's probably going to be a good solid month or a little more before it's ready. That corn is looking really good. I have some high hopes for it. The early corn, though, you know, there is places you can go through it and you'll have some pretty nice size ears. I would say if the whole field averaged what the good spots did, I would say probably 120 to 150 bushel corn, possibly more. But the problem is you'll have a couple good areas like that, and then you'll have areas where there is literally zero cobs at all. I walked over probably an acre's worth just a little while ago, and there was literally no cobs that were any good. The corn just completely died. It just could not take the heat and the drought stress. Needless to say, we are going to get started preparing our John Deere 6620 for harvest. As you can tell here, we've got the corn header hooked up, and Coleman and I, the other day, we actually took the snoots off here. I thought I had cleaned all this out after harvest last year. Apparently not. This was all built up, you know, with trash and stuff. So we took the snoots off and took it across the road and kind of blew that junk out with a leaf blower just to make it a little easier on us. Being our corn is in such bad shape this year, chances are we're going to have to really narrow our deck plates, these two grading plates. Each row has two deck plates. Chances are we're going to have to really narrow those up. Being we have smaller cobs and smaller stalks due to that drought, we're going to have to narrow these gaps up here so that, you know, smaller cobs don't come in here and fall through, or, you know, if the edge of the cob where the grain are, if this is too wide, it will be hitting directly on the grain, and every time it pulls a cob down here, it will bust several grains off of each cob, and then that's header loss, which we don't want, especially considering how bad our yields are going to be anyway. So start with, we have to grease each single one of these units. We use John Deere corn header grease. This is a 1/2 inch square drive. You can just use like a 1/2 inch ratchet with an extension. Take each of these out. Each unit has one. And then there is a grease fitting on the back side of the header back here where you pump corn header grease. Corn header grease looks similar to a grease when you pump it in, but at temperature, once it gets warm, corn header grease becomes more liquid, almost like a gear oil. And then when it cools back down again, it kind of solidifies. That is just to kind of keep the gearbox lubed correctly. Just a regular grease, when it hits those gears, it'll kind of just sling it out, and it won't stay on the gears and the bearings in there. So the reason for the corn header grease over regular standard gear oil, though, is so that, like, you know, once that oil grease cools down, it solidifies, it's much less likely to leak out seals and things. So needless to say, first things first, let's get these plugs removed and get this thing greased so that we can get our combine ready to roll. I use my 1/2 inch Milwaukee impact here. All right, so as y'all can see in there, it's kind of gross looking. I'm going to go back there and start pumping some grease in here until the grease comes out here. You should see it between a couple bearings in there. Whenever, or between a couple gears in there, you'll see the new grease squish out. So a little trick I learned last year, you'll take an electric grease gun like this Milwaukee one. I just zip tie the trigger shut and connect my hose here. And I can get up here and watch. And that grease will come right up in there between those gears whenever it gets full. This gearbox here has actually got a crack in it, so this one may take quite a bit of grease. I meant to replace it this winter, but it held up last year, so we're just gonna run it until it gives out. I've got a spare header with some spare gearboxes if I need it, if and when I need it, so we're gonna run this one till it dies. Y'all can see there at the very top, the grease is starting to squirt out that top. I think we're out of grease in the grease gun, but that's all you gotta do. Once it starts coming over that gear, you're good to go. All right, guys, so next up on our list of things to do to the corn header here, we have to set our deck plates down here, which is what strips the cob from the stalk. I went out and picked a fairly decent sized stalk. I probably didn't pick the biggest, but I also didn't pick the smallest. I'm gonna try to set these deck plates to about the size of this. So I've got me a socket, which is a little bit bigger than the stalk here. So I'm gonna set the deck plates to this. Typically speaking, you want the front to be this size, and then the back, you want it to be a little bit bigger, maybe like 1/8 of an inch, 1/16 of an inch. That way it kind of funnels in. So, all right, to set our deck plates, we have to loosen, there's 4 bolts we have to loosen, 2 here and the 2 down here, and then we'll be able to push this in. And to adjust them, we really need to adjust both sides a little bit. Try to keep them as centered with the rollers below them as possible. So, like I said, I've got my socket. So, like I said, I've got my socket that we're going to set the width with, and then I've got my other socket that we're going to loosen the bolts up with. It's a 3/4 inch socket. You don't have to loosen them too much. Alright, so I got them all loose here. We're going to slide them in just a fraction. So we're going to put the bottom pretty well close to the width of the socket, and then the top we're going to leave it a little bit wider. All right, now we're going to tighten everything back down good. All right, now we just got to do that 5 more times. All right, I'm gonna get to it. Alright guys, so we got all 6 deck plates set to where I think they need to be. Who knows, we'll probably have to change them if I was guessing between now and then, but got those changed. I did spray down the chains with a little bit of belt dressing, or chain dressing. See if that helps it. Let's get these snoots put back on now. Then I've got just a few settings to change on the combine, and I got to grease the combine, and I think it'll be ready to roll. just like that, it's starting to look like a corn header again. We need one tip here. I ran it last year without it. It was missing, I think, when I bought the header. But overall, I mean, the old header's in decent shape. We need some of the latches to hold the snoots on. A little metal latch up there. You can buy them aftermarket. I think they're like 30 or 40 bucks a piece, and 2 per row. So we'd have 1, 2, 4, 6. We'd have about 8 of them. So I hate to spend $250 on a couple of little latches, but may end up having to do it someday. I only had one time last year, one actually tilted up on me, so not too concerned with it. We go slow enough that we can pay attention, and these snoots aren't in the best shape as you can see right there and right over there. They're getting a little bit of cancer, but no more than we shall. It'll last us a long time. So let's get back here, grease the combine up, change a few settings, and I think we will almost be ready to start shelling corn. I didn't show any of this on footage. I got this in the video last year. My dad and I got the chopper and the spinner put back on here. Everything's bolted up. The belt and all that's back on it. We have to take all this off for wheat harvest because we save our straw. So if we leave the chopper on there, it will chop up all the straw. But by taking all this off, it just lays it in the windrow. And for corn, you have to loosen these 2 bolts on both sides and pull the knives out of the chopper. Or from what I've been told, it can actually wreck the chopper on these 6620s. So Coleman's going through now. We're going to grease them. You don't have to put like 5 in those. I'm going to grease everything, and then this little project will almost be complete, and we'll be ready when the corn's ready. We hope, anyway. I'm guessing probably a week. We would try it this weekend if we don't get the rain they're calling for Friday or Saturday. We got 2.5 inches last night here on the farm. Thankfully, because we were getting very dry, the beans were starting to roll up a little bit. This will definitely help those out. So praise the Lord for the rain. Now we need to dry up a little bit so we can get this corn out before it gets any worse condition. Just going to remind you guys, if y'all haven't seen the previous videos or one of the previous videos, we have teamed up with Farm Merch Ben to provide farm merch, hats, shirts, koozies, tumblers, you name it, they've got it. With our Ruth Farms logo. We've got a newly designed Ruth Farms logo. We visited those people, Allison and Nikki, while we were in West Tennessee visiting the Griggs family. They give us some shirts and hats. I'll show y'all some of that here in the clip. But if y'all interested, go check it out. Dylan Joyce Farms, Matt Griggs, Griggs Farms LLC, Crop Critic, Chronicles Kayla, IP Farms, a bunch of us are on their website. They do great work. They ship it straight from their little shop there to you. So I don't have to have my hands dirty with it, don't have to touch it. It goes straight to y'all, and we'll get a little bit of proceeds to help us out. And appreciate it if y'all check them out, and if you want something, buy something. We're starting off here. We are putting some new batteries in the combine. If y'all remember back from this fall, the combine's getting hard to starting. Or sorry, from back this spring, when we was cutting wheat, combine's getting hard starting. So we took the little group, I think they were like a group 24 batteries. We're gonna put these group 31s in. We're gonna change the orientation of them. And we're gonna run 1 alt battery cable. So we gotta change her all up here, make it where this thing will crank again. All right, so we're making our new battery cables. Coleman's taking these crimper style battery crimpers here, crimping our battery terminals on. Makes a really good impression there. And then we'll take and solder them on as well. Oop. All right, so now that Coleman's got these things crimped on here, we're gonna solder them. That gives us 2 good connections. We have to get our terminal here really hot. If you get the terminal hot, it'll automatically heat the wire up. And if you keep your heat towards the lower end of the terminal, when you start putting solder in, it'll actually pull it in. I'm gonna start adding my solder. As you can tell, it is sucking my solder in. I'm gonna pull my heat. That is a good soldered connection. That connection will not go anywhere, and it will hold the test of time. All right, so we got all of our cables made up here. I've also drilled a hole down here in the bottom of this panel. We're going to mount a battery disconnect switch. That way we can turn the batteries on and off once we're done using it. Prevent any kind of parasitic draw, and potentially keep maybe mice from chewing on wires. Because apparently, from what I've been told, is they will not chew on them if there's no power on the wires, or less likely to chew on them. So anyway, we're getting this installed, and then we'll get started on something else here. It's getting about too hot here in this North Carolina sun. This is about the last 90-degree day I think we're gonna have for a while, maybe even for the rest of the year, I hope. Next week's gonna be down in the 70s, so it's gonna be heavenly. All right, guys, we got our battery disconnect installed down here. It's kind of below the engine here, kind of out of the way. We shouldn't ever hit it. We just turn it on. We got all of our new battery cables here. We upgraded to a 1-aught cable. Made all of our connections ourselves. We still got to make us a battery hold down. Like I said earlier, this combine had group 24 batteries, and now we're to a group 31. So we got a lot more cranking amps. It's got the studs on top instead of just a regular battery post. And this way, the combine, the 986, the
4250, the spray,
pretty much everything's gonna have the same battery. All of our trucks. That way, you know, if we got to swap back and forth, it's a lot easier.
And it's just one thing. Whenever we go to, say we have a bad battery, you grab a 9/16 wrench. You know exactly what battery to go buy. You're not looking for it and prying on them posts and doing everything else. So.
All right, so we got everything on. I got the battery disconnect on. Let's see if this old girl will crank. I think I might get that new solenoid. Oh yeah, spun right over. Little solenoid here on the side of the firewall gets some issues sometimes. It's ready for corn harvest. Can't say we got a little decent corn out here. There ain't much of it. There is a little. Oh yeah, look at them nice new pretty tires. Woo boy.